I know he looks like he's a member of Leonard Skinner. This is my homie Zach. We went to Georgia State together. I don't think I ever told you. You probably remember doing this for me. I think we took like a European history course.
Was that what we took?
We took 2 classes together.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my book. And he was like, "Well, you should have your book by now." And then I remember
I said that?
No.
Oh,
The professor was like, "You should have your book by now, sir." And then you were like, "Well, actually, they don't have that book in the." So I was like, "That's a down ass white boy." That's what I remember thinking.
That's my guy. that's look, you ain't gonna run us through like that.
Right.
No, I was thinking about taking Dr. Rouse's class.
Oh yeah, that was intense.
Man.
Yep.
We try to tell those other guys in there all day, y'all be quiet. Right. You're about to get killed.
Right.
And they would start talking.
Right. That was what, African American female activism?
Yeah, women's.
Okay.
It's just African American women's history, but it definitely turned into a guys were in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
But what do you want to say about yourself?
Hey, like I said, I'm Zach Ames. We've been friends for a long time, known each other a while. You know, haven't kept up as well as we always should, but we usually reconnect. Thankful for social media. It's good for something.
Right. He paid for my IHOP once or twice. Was it twice?
Yeah, we've met a few times over the years. And keep it. You know, we talk and I teach. I'm a U.S. history teacher and an AP government teacher. Been doing that for 15, 14 years. Yeah, it's been a while. 14 years in the classroom. I didn't always teach that. I used to work in an alternative school with kids who weren't going to graduate, kind of getting them caught up. But I've kind of went more academic now, and so teaching that. You
thought about becoming a professor?
You know, I have and I haven't.
You have like academic written all
Man,
over.
look, they don't pay enough money because you end up teaching during the summer and all that. I mean,
you can write some dope books though. Make some money on. Go on a speaking tour.
Here's the thing, like I equally love academics, but I also equally love people. So I like the kids. They're. I know that sounds cheesy, but I do like working with kids. It's a lot of fun.
And you coach too, right?
Yeah. So I've been coaching cross country for the last couple years. Might not be coaching it this year. My buddy the only reason I was coaching is my buddy that coached it wanted somebody to hang out with all day that he could stand talking to. So he recruited me.
Wow.
To coach with him. So I did, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, I coached wrestling for 10 years, and so I can in fact coach.
Okay.
People always laugh when they hear me coach cross country because I do not look like a cross country runner. But believe me, there was a day where I was an athlete.
You look like you can throw the discus though. Like you look strong.
Man, see, you're coming back to that.
I'm just saying, you look like.
I do. Anything that's I played everything. I grew up playing baseball and basketball were my two favorites.
Did you play football?
I did play football.
Okay.
I didn't start playing until middle school. I enjoyed it. Baseball got boring. My dad was a college baseball player.
Oh, really?
My uncle played professionally. He's good friends with Jose Canseco.
You said that so casually, like that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, they were. My uncle literally got called up for a week, never played in a game, got sit back down. But he played in the minors for a long time. So baseball was in our. I loved basketball, just being an Atlanta fan, and I truly a real Hawks fan since. I was telling somebody the other day, my first game was in like '91, Hawks versus Bulls.
Wow.
So I always loved basketball, but I'm not blessed with any gifts that would lead me towards. But basketball and wrestling were the two that I liked, and the problem is that their seasons both coincide. So I had to choose the one I was decent at, which was wrestling.
But back to the topic at hand, though.
Yeah.
I want to talk about replacement theory.
Sure.
As well as critical race theory, CRT.
Yeah.
How do you? Let's make sure we don't break this thing.
Yeah, this thing.
Big guys. Though. Let me.
Big fellas.
Redistribute the weight.
I don't know. You look like you lost some weight.
I've been running. I've been in the gym.
Have you?
Yeah.
All right, don't brag.
I hate it though. I hate it.
Oh, I hate it. I got bad on the bike yesterday.
You know, I get on the elliptical, but mind over matter. But,
I got you.
But
ahead.
So how do you process CRT? What does it mean to you?
So I mean, I guess the question is, what do you mean? Do you mean like critical race theory as it is, like the actual legal framework? Is it real? Is it in there? Or critical race theory as it is in popular culture right now? Like,
that's a good delineation.
Because those two things aren't the same. When you hear critical race theory being talked about on TV by whatever politician is weaponizing that for fear, they're rarely talking about critical race theory. They're probably not even talking about critical theory, which is somewhat related, but not the same as critical race theory.
Okay.
So I guess, what do you mean on that?
I guess at this point, explain what is the technical definition?
Yeah, I mean it's just it's a legal theory. It's a theory of, and there's lots of different legal theories, but it's a theory of how we got to the place we are now in the United States. It's specifically looking at American law, which is something you can look at. I mean, we've got a federal system with federal and state governments and local governments all creating laws and ordinances. There's literally, I couldn't tell you the exact number, but hundreds of thousands, if not millions of laws and rules on the books.
Right.
And so it's a look to see, like, are there patterns? Whoops, hold on, let me get that off.
Let me cut mine off too.
Patterns of what you would call, creating intentional racial disparity.
Okay.
I mean, obviously.
So you acknowledge the fact that has happened?
Racial disparity?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Because it's some white folks that's in denial about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think most of their denial is they want that back in an age that they can't touch.
Now, what do you mean by that?
Or that doesn't touch them.
What do you mean by that?
They don't want to think about anybody directly related to them.
Okay.
Being involved there. So they want to think about slavery was bad. No one will say, they're occasionally they're idiots that will. but most people, if you talk to them, even your biggest, craziest, bigoted redneck,
they'll tell
hey,
you.
was slavery? Oh yeah, slavery was bad. But they can leave that back in 18 whatever year, 65, 67, whatever, even early Jim Crow, they can look at that early on into the the late 1800s, early 1900s, even into the civil rights movement. Anything after that, they want to think, Martin Luther King came, he gave a few speeches. No one's being judged anymore by the color of their skin, by the content of their character, and that's the life we live now.
Right.
That no one's doing that.
Right.
I mean, that would be nice. That would be super cool.
Right.
But as a historian, we know that's not the case.
No.
And we know that that's not. And again,
two history majors.
Yeah.
Got my degree in history. You did as well.
Yeah. And this isn't like me saying that critical race theory is 100% correct.
Right.
But the thought behind critical race theory is that there are systemic issues within our legal system.
Right. I don't think anyone can deny that.
I mean, we literally called it Jim Crow.
Right.
We had a name for it.
Right.
There was a guy, well, not a guy, I mean, a character.
Right?
A character who we took his name. We said everything post Plessy versus Ferguson was Jim Crow era.
Right. I mean, how much more distinct can it get?
But it was systemic. Literally, the Voting Rights Act of '65 literally is a law that says states have to submit election law changes to the federal government to make sure there's nothing systemically in there that would keep black voters or minority voters from voting. Right. People don't realize, largely that was still into effect until the Supreme Court kind of came through a few years ago and kind of gutted some of it.
Right.
But that was still into effect. That there were still large communities of minorities that either weren't registered to vote or weren't voting, and that's a problem. That's a systemic problem that the Voting Rights Act had to not just deal with right then, but deal with for a long time.
Right.
When the Civil Rights Act was passed in '64, it wasn't a law that said, all right, well, no one's racist anymore. That's not what it said.
Well, how do you define racism?
I mean, the basics is that you think you're better than somebody, or you think you think that there's some sort of inherent superiority about one race over another race.
Right.
And of course, we could get into talk about what is race and that kind of thing. I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
I think in here we're talking about black and white in America.
Right.
So I think let's keep it there. And
well, let me interject. I'll be the first one to say this. Race. I'm currently a nursing student.
Yeah.
There is no biological foundation for the idea of race.
Okay.
It's clearly a socio-political construct.
Okay.
Doesn't exist.
Okay.
If I were to have a child, if I were to have sex with a white woman and have a child,
right,
it would be another human being.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So are we saying race is something cultural more than it is biological?
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean,
yes.
I do think there are some biological markers. I mean, clearly,
phenotypically.
Yeah. There are reasons we look differently. There are
right.
even sometimes different diseases that might affect different groups more than
Definitely.
others. And again, I'm not saying I have all the answers to that. That's the problem being with history guys is that we tend to be interested in almost everything.
Right.
And so like we know just enough to be dangerous and everywhere. But
Right.
I mean, it goes back to, you know, yeah, there are some. It's more sociological. It's more
Yeah.
cultural, ethnicity, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's that. But it's strong enough to where it's a very real thing. I don't think we can deny that it's real.
It's real.
And that's one of the things we have to get through if we're going to
at least acknowledge it.
Sure.
I mean, I guess the way I look at it, because I've even realized, like in certain countries, your race is contingent upon your economic standing.
Sure.
So I really feel like the whole idea, what's the best way to say it? My father told me, he said the only way that racism would end if there was an alien invasion. Because it would force all of us to confront our humanity and how we're really not that much. I mean, I feel like at its core, everybody needs love. Everybody needs a sense of community. Everybody needs to have, like, I guess, again, to be loved and have a sense of community and just to be treated with respect. I mean, we all want the same shit.
Sure.
So it's like, why do we hurt each other, but we all fundamentally need the same thing?
Yeah.
You know? But
I mean, I think popular culture covers that. I mean, I think if you look at, I mean, if you're as cheesy, you have to look like films like Independence Day. Like, you remember, like, that's the whole world. Or, you know, even more specifically, I'm a huge comic book nerd. And so, like, the graphic novel Watchmen. You know, Watchmen's one of the more famous graphic novels of all time. And part of that...
That's DC, right?
Yeah, Vertigo. They're kind of like shady kind of background. It's not. It's just more adult type thing, type stuff. But you know, that's what Watchmen dealt with, was this kind of this attack on humanity that kind of united the United States and the Soviets. You know, and it was an outside attack, and that was the whole reason it was orchestrated by the eventual bad guys. That he was actually trying to bring humanity together through some sort of kind of grand disaster type thing.
Wow.
You know, yes, I agree there. That's kind of one of the only things that could immediately bring us together.
Right.
I think beyond that, it's just, you know, that's not going to happen. Sorry. I mean, don't be wrong. I hope there's aliens. I just hope they're not going to attack us. Right. I love astronomy, and I love thinking about, you know, planets far away. I'm just hoping if someone ever shows up, they're like, hey, cool, we got some stuff to show you. I know that flies in the face of a lot of popular scientific theory.
But see, somebody was telling me that, I don't know if this is true, but they said that the government had got a bunch of, like, parishioners and just different clergymen from different religions.
Yeah, they did.
They got them together and were like, hey, there's possibility that there may be life other places. So you may want to tell your parishioners.
It was more of as we started moving further into the galaxy, not galaxy, solar system, we're not even close to out of this galaxy. Right. As we got further into the solar system, the government was like, hey, look, if we do find life somewhere, it's going to mean a lot for people's basic, you know, their
it's going to uproot a lot of shit.
Yeah. And so that's why it wasn't like, hey, we found life, or hey, we think there's life.
Okay.
You know, maybe there were some developments, you know, in Mars and kind of stuff. We found, you know, the existence of water and, you know, some of those.
Oh, we did find water in Mars, didn't we?
Yeah, it's got polar ice caps.
And anywhere there's water, life can be sustained, right?
Can be. I mean, it's and then some of those moons of, is it Jupiter or Saturn? I think it's Jupiter. Europa and some of those, like, you know, there's the possibility that some of those could sustain some sort of life. Wow. And so they brought them together to kind of say, hey, we should probably address this before it happens. You know, how would you guys, in asking kind of these you know, because ultimately that's who teaches us our philosophy is religious leaders. Right. Not for everyone. I mean, obviously there's religious people and agnostic and atheists and that kind of thing, but especially in America, like, religion still has and most countries really, whether they want to admit it or not, still has a lot of influence on people's thinking. Definitely. So let's sit down with pastors and talk about kind of what would happen there.
Right. So it's pretty much just preparing society. If that's a possibility. Yeah. Okay.
I still think we're a long way away from discovering any of that. I don't think there's anything, when you look at the biology of how perfectly Earth is situated between the moon or between the sun and where it's at. Like, you just go 1,000 miles further and it's too cold. You come 1,000 miles more in, you get Venus. Right. You know, it's and 1,000. I'm not saying that's the exactly.
Kind of sounds like intelligent design, doesn't it?
I mean, look, yeah, one of the things that, as a religious person,
right, I'm a Christian.
Yeah. When I get up there, I've got a few questions, but one is like, all right, take me back to the beginning. Let me watch it. I just want to see. Like, I tend to think there's probably some sort of collection of a lot of different scientific theory and religious belief there.
Right.
And I just think it's cool.
One thing I think is really interesting, if you look in a lot of African spiritual systems, there's no distinction made between God and science.
Sure.
Like, science is literally considered a manifestation of God.
Sure. And honestly, for the longest time, I mean, pre kind of overarching Catholic Church taking over Europe, I mean, everywhere. I mean, it wasn't just, that was, in Islam. I mean, science and religion are very, in Christianity and science. I mean, some of the more, big discoveries made in science for the world have been made through Christian scientists and Muslim scientists.
Right.
Chinese science or Asian scientists, Asiatic countries, that kind of.
Like, I do know you spoke of Islam. I know, what was it? Timbuktu, Sankore.
Yep.
And there was another school, I can't remember the name of it, but mathematics was like the overarching theme there. Like, everything has a mathematical language.
Sure.
So, yeah, but we're going to back to the subject.
Look, you almost got me off on Timbuktu because that's somewhere I want to visit. But
oh, really?
I mean, it's incredible.
Timbuktu?
What's incredible? It's vast libraries of.
Right.
I mean, it's like the Lost Library of Alexandria, except it's still here.
True.
I couldn't read most of it.
Right.
If I could have somebody like walk around with me and show me what I'm looking at.
Wow.
That would be incredible. That's would
something
be.
You don't hear every day. A white dude don't want to see Timbuktu.
Well, it's a source of. Like, there's just so much cool stuff in there that again, it goes back to Lost Library of Alexandria. Like, I could get emotional about thinking about that library burning to the ground because there was so much in there that we just lost. And that's one of those places, and that's thanks to especially in Northern Africa, the